Hello and welcome to another episode of Two Guys and a Chainsaw. I'm Todd.
And I'm Craig.
Well, Craig, this week you picked the movie for us.
Yep.
After our month of fun doing 1981 slashers, you went a little deeper into the era and picked a non-slasher from 1987 or 1988. I'm not sure. It's kind of listed two different ways online.
Mm-hmm.
IMDb says 1987, so we're going to go with that. And it is the killer mutant cat movie, Uninvited. Everyone's favorite killer mutant cat movie. This is another first for the podcast, right? When was the last killer mutant cat movie we did?
I don't think we have.
My God, mark this date. It's great. And I said to you before we started recording, I just cannot wait to talk about this movie because I'm just going to want to throw this right out there. I enjoyed every single minute of this film.
Yeah, I kind of love this movie.
This might be my new favorite It's Bad, It's Good movie. I might even enjoy this movie more than Blood Rage or The Mutilator. I kind of feel like this is the top of my top 5 now. How in the world? I never heard of this before. Where did you find it? Because you also, when you sent me the message saying this is what we're watching this week, by the way, don't read anything about it if you can help it. Just go in completely blind. And I'm so glad I did. Although I'm not sure it would have made a huge difference anyway, but it was just nice to be surprised by the kind of movie I was in for. Where did you hear about it? Had you seen it before?
No, I'd never even heard of it before.
Big surprise.
After the month of slashers, which don't get me wrong, I enjoyed. I really did. We even talked about it on at least one of them. They just, they were fine as far as slashers went, but they weren't bad enough to be so bad. They're good. And so I wanted to do something fun. And so I just did a Google search of so bad it's good horror movies. And most of them, I came across a bunch of lists, more than I even looked at. But I looked at 3 or 4 different lists, and most of them we've already done, like Terror Vision and The Deadly Spawn. And all of those were really fun movies to talk about. And this was one of the few movies on one of those lists, it was only on one, that not only had we not seen or talked about, but that I had never even heard of.
Yeah. And
it just sounded too good to be true. And it was everything I hoped it would be.
Yes! I have to say 2 things. Number 1, isn't it great that you can Google things like this and immediately get responses?
Uh-huh.
I also, while I was watching this movie, one of the actresses in it who plays Suzanne, Sherry Shattuck, I could have sworn, oh God, I probably recognize her from something. I looked her up on IMDb and I didn't really find much of anything that she's been in outside of this, which surprised me. So then I Googled people who look like Sherry Shattuck. Thinking that, she has kind of a Christina Applegate look. Maybe that's where I'm, getting it from or whatever like that. And that works. And then number 2, I'm a little disappointed to hear that of this list of so bad it's good horror movies, we might have already exhausted the best of them.
Yeah.
Oh, according to the internet, that's not going to bode well for the future of our podcast.
I know. I'm sure we'll still be able to find more, but gosh, I can't believe that I had never heard of this movie before, and then it was just it's just got everything that you want. It's completely a 100% 80s aesthetic.
Mm-hmm. Oh, in all the right ways.
It's a direct-to-video film, which you can kind of tell for a variety of reasons. The score, I really enjoyed the score.
Oh, yes. I enjoyed how over-the-top bad the score was.
Yeah, and it was just persistent, all the time. Sometimes it kind of sounded like The Shining, they're doing that thing with like, just like 3 notes repeated over and over again, but it seems completely synthetic, but it plays all the time.
It's so enthusiastic.
Yeah.
You're right.
Beautiful people who are terrible actors. The corniest dialogue you can imagine. And just the premise, like, honestly, I told Alan, I'm like, I think you might want to watch this movie with me this week, because it's about an evil mutant cat that lives in the throat of a regular cat and comes out and kills people when it gets mad, and it's poisonous.
And by the way, when it's done killing others and somehow shape-shifting, like getting bigger and smaller in ways that I'm not sure, crawls carefully back into the cat's mouth.
Oh God! And the effects are terrible. And
oh man, deliciously terrible.
The cat, like I told him, I'm like, anytime the cat is on screen, and sometimes even not, like, just to suggest that the cat is around, you just are constantly hearing meow, 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 and it's the same 2 meows, just on a loop.
Yes.
And my favorite part about the movie is that the cat, like, not the mutant cat that comes out of the cat, but the actual cat itself is adorable. And, like, it's like you're supposed to be, like, menaced by it, and people are supposed to be menaced by it, but it's just this beautiful orange house cat that is in no way menacing at all.
No.
It's a beautiful cat that's, like, not in any way scary or aggressive or anything. Like, they just shoot the cat, and then they shoot people, like, being scared of it. Oh my God. It's hilarious.
And the cat becomes even cuter when the mutant cat's crawling out of its mouth, because it's like a stuffed cat you might get from like a toy store.
It's like a puppet. Like, just like, it kind of looks like the xenomorph, like when it pops out of somebody's chest. It looks like that.
First.
Except it's coming out of the mouth of a stuffed, like you said, like a cat that you would buy at Walmart, and like cut its mouth open and then just push like this other puppet through it. And it reminded me of like a popple or something, like
yes.
it just kind of like the inside of the puppet just kind of inverts and comes out, and it's an alien cat. You never see it, like, it's always in super, super close up. And then when the mutant, it's hard to even explain, because sometimes it seems like the mutant cat like comes all the way out of the regular cat, but really it's almost more like the regular cat just kind of turns inside out.
Do you think so?
I don't know.
I'm not sure about that. You're right that it's not clear, because when it starts out, and the movie starts out in like a research laboratory with 2 guys talking about, we need to cut this thing open and see what's growing inside of it, right?
Well, and you know that you're in for a treat when the very first thing you see is Amazing Movies presents.
Yes!
like that's the production company, Amazing Movies. It's like,
yes.
Oh man, we're in for something amazing. Like, put on your glasses, folks. You got something to see.
And so they pull, they've got a bunch of animals, like research animals in there, and they pull this adorable looking cat out. You're right. And they put it on the table, and they pull out a scary looking needle, and the cat escapes and runs down the hallway.
Code red.
It's escaped. They get on the phone and have this awkward phone conversation. It's like, put on the radiation suits and things. We're at radiation level 5 or whatever. And then I guess they also put on radiation suits, because they hint at their own presence in the next scene, which is a bunch of guys in radiation suits and carrying a cat carrier.
Radiation suits that look like something that you would buy at Spirit Halloween.
Oh yeah, they're
like these ridiculous hazmat suits, like, made out of aluminum foil. Oh boy.
down the staircase. They corner the cat, and then the cat jumps on. Do we get the cat jumping out at this point? The
evil cat comes out. That's what I keep calling. Like the evil cat comes out of its mouth. The whole thing, it reminded me. It looks like a reject from the set of Ghoulies or Troll or something. It is just very, very clearly a puppet that either somebody has its hand up the ass or they're just throwing it at people. There's nothing real looking about it. It doesn't look real. It doesn't move in a realistic fashion. It is cheap. It is a cheap toy puppet cat, and it's hilarious.
It almost looks like a joke, like the filmmakers are in on the joke, because they almost at times later in the movie seem to revel in the fact that this puppet looks so bad. Like, there are close-ups on this thing or wide shots on this thing that should not linger as long as they do. You can practically see the arm of the guy operating it, right? But yet they do. Like, not just like that, but it's like the cat pops out and like shakes around and dances a little bit, next to the furniture or something. Like, if you're playing with your 3-year-old or something, you might like pop a little puppet out and kind of shake it around and then pull it back.
I read a review that said that the cat, like when it attacks, looks like a carpet remnant, like in bad shape. And it does. It just kind of looks like your childhood stuffed animal that you've had for 30 years and have slept with for every night. Like it's just ratty and nasty and oh my God, and so funny. And the little evil cat on the inside is so funny looking, like laugh out loud funny the second you see it, because it doesn't really move. It just I swear I imagine that somebody has the little evil part on a stick and like they just push it out and move it around a little bit.
At first I wasn't sure. I thought it was almost like an Alien ripoff, where this little inner mouth or inner cat kind of comes out of the cat's mouth, but it also has arms like that claw at the face of this guy, and then it kind of, I guess, sucks back in and escapes some more. And the guys on the stairway are like, oh, crap, it got away. And then we get another shot back to those guys who are back in their normal clothes. And I thought, oh, okay, well, the dudes in the hazmat suit were different people, right, that they sent after the cat. But then the guy, I think it's the director. I think one of the two is the director. He says,
the building's secure. Now, Paul, no matter what happens, we can't let that cat out of here. Dr. Gray, you saw what just happened at that stairwell. Just shut up about that.
Yeah. Oh, God.
There's a lot. The dialogue is so funny, and the acting is so bad.
It's terrible, but it also begs the question, all right, why was the cat suddenly radioactive? Like, they weren't wearing hazmat suits in the office when they were going to inject the cat, but as soon as it left the office, suddenly it's a radioactive threat.
And they never explain what's going on. Like, why is there a little evil cat inside this other cat?
Well,
and
that for
like
sure.
the scientists are like baffled. That's what they're trying to figure out. They're like trying to figure out what is inside this cat. So, like, I guess it's the suggestion is that they don't know. Like, they didn't put it in there. Like, how did that little
been monitoring
cat...
it?
No. And when the cat comes out and kills all the people in the stairwell, like, you don't actually see anything. You just see blood splatter all over the walls. And then the next time you see the cat, you see a shadow silhouette of it, and you see the, like, all Nosferatu-like, and you see the evil cat coming out of its throat. And it kills the scientist, played by the writer and director, Graydon Clark. And then it escapes and just runs down the street.
Oh, and then it just appears everywhere. Suddenly the cat is in boxes that, we never saw it get into.
But again, it's just a cat. Like, it's not scary. So, like, it's not even as scary as, like, cat scares that we see in every horror movie. It's just like people will open up a trash can or they'll come around a corner and there's a beautiful cat like, hello. Like,
right. And the cat's really not doing anything unless somebody pisses it off. Right?
Right.
Like, so most of the time the cat's just running around and eating food, and it finds a bowl of food, I guess, and eats from the bowl, and then there's this random guy who is like patting ants. Oh, I'll get you more, and a dude mugs him and hops into his car, his truck, and takes off. And so the cat decides he's going to get revenge on the guy who just fed him, hops in the back of this pickup, going to a random place. It's just so random, right? He hops in the back of this pickup. These guys are driving down the road, ha 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 ha, drinking their beer, and then suddenly the cat puppet, the evil cat puppet, breaks through the window. You can see the dude's arm as the puppet breaks through the window and just grabs at this guy's face, and then we see a different model car. In slow motion, rolling down a hill, it missed the bridge, and I thought, it's going to explode at the bottom. It didn't do that. That part disappointed
it just rolls
me.
Down. I think they stole that footage from another movie.
It must be, right?
It's still a red pickup truck, but it's a completely different model. And you're right, like, just this random person who we never know who he is, just this random mechanic is nice to the cat, but then gets beat up, so the cat, exacts revenge for the nice random stranger who gave him food.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, it's so funny. And then we meet our main characters, I suggest. Suzanne and Bobby are these...
I love this scene so much.
To be fair, hot 80s Valley girls in bikinis and skimpy, like, t-shirt cover-ups.
Creatively constructed t-shirts.
Yeah.
I spent a good portion of the scene just trying to figure out the physics of how these t-shirts were cut and slashed so that they still stayed on them, but were very revealing in all these spots. It took me a while to figure out. It was almost like an Escher painting kind of deal with them.
Yeah,
I finally figured it out. I had to rewind and pause a few times. Go through slow motion. I get what you're getting at. For science.
And these are your pretty standard, beautiful, buxom 80s girls, and to reiterate, they are very beautiful, and they spend most of the movie in very small bikinis. So if you're into that, there's, one check mark on the list. Suzanne and Bobby, and it seems like they are just trying to, like, they're on spring break, but they don't have any money, so they're just trying to, like, hang out at hotels and use the pools, and I don't know. But they go into this hotel, and security immediately tries to throw them out, but they're saved by this rich guy named Walter Graham.
Hotel personnel get a little sensitive during spring break week.
Yeah.
You girls don't have a room, do you?
Yes.
No. It's okay. I understand. I've been there. I might be able to help you with a place to stay. I was just about to go in and have some dinner. Why don't you join me and we can talk about it?
I don't think that would really...
Well, it's just something to eat, Suzanne.
Yeah, it's a good restaurant. Just something to eat, Suzanne. No strings attached.
I just don't think we're dressed for dinner.
It'll be all right. Trust me.
They do.
He's like super creepy, like middle-aged old man, and
he's kind of like Bernie from Weekend at Bernie's, like super just slimy, and obviously uses his money to. It's funny. It's so 80s, and that's he's the corrupt. I don't know if he's a corrupt businessman or if he's got like mob ties. Nothing is ever clear. You just know that he's, a shady guy. And his business associate, his very serious business associate, approaches him and like chastises him for like scamming on these girls or whatever. And the business associate's name is Mike Harvey, played by George Kennedy.
Yes.
George Kennedy is a good actor, but I have a feeling that this man would do anything for a check. Like, because
he's in a lot of stuff.
He's in a lot of stuff. We've done several movies that he's been in. I don't remember if we've done the original Creepshow, but he was in that. He's in
Creepshow 2.
Creepshow 2, that's right. Creepshow 2.
Yeah, that's the one he's in, and we did that. Yep.
And he was in the Naked Gun movies. He's
Fantastic.
been in a bazillion things, and he's good. He's a good actor.
He's the best actor in this whole movie.
Oh,
yeah, for sure.
Yes. Oh my gosh. And
by a mile.
The movie was shot on a $200,000 budget, and the $75,000, I don't remember, a huge percentage of that went to paying him and the guy that plays Walter Graham, who I don't know him from anything.
He was all over TV in the 80s, like very much a TV actor, like at a time in film and TV history where there wasn't much crossover between the two. So if somebody was going to appear in a made for video movie, it was most likely going to be filled with soap stars and TV actors and things like that. He was Mike Briggs in Airwolf. I don't know if you ever saw that, but no, he didn't do much outside of television in this time. Yeah,
they're like a trio of these older, bad guys, and the third one is Clu Gulager, and he did a lot of TV too. But I didn't know him from much of anything either. But he was in Return of the Living Dead.
Yeah.
He was in The Last Picture Show, so...
He's in some Disney movies, yeah.
Yeah, he's been in a bunch of stuff. The bulk of their budget went to paying these three guys, which is funny because they're really... Aside from Walter, the other two really aren't in it all that much.
No.
But Mike, the business associate, is like, we have to be serious. We have to, get this money offshore or something. I don't know.
Yeah. Again, it's all very vague stuff about money and shit.
Right. You really never know what's going on with the cat, and it's just suggested that these guys are in some way involved in criminal activity, and they've got a bunch of money, and they've got to get out of the country.
Yeah.
And so Walter invites the girls to meet them on the yacht later for a party. They invite this guy named Daryl onto the yacht, this younger guy, and Walter shows him these three briefcases, suitcases. Each of them have $1 million cash in it. But then they kill Daryl for some reason.
This is the best scene. The scene makes no sense. It is so all over the place and weird. It's like you said, they're talking with him like he's a business associate and he's going to help them out because I guess he's an accountant. They're saying highly written, vague stuff about money and laundering and offshore stuff and ha 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 and sort of patting him on the back. Then they hand him these three briefcases full of $1 million each, which is like they're paying him off. But then, like you said, it suddenly turns and they say, but you wouldn't cheat us, would you? And he's like, oh, no, I never would tell anybody about it. And then they start looking at him funny like, oh, yeah, really? So I guess then it was all a ruse, like an elaborate ruse, like they really suspect him. And the whole time, this dialogue is so insane. There are lines like they're just sitting there and Graham says, I love to look at a fire, don't you? And he's like, yeah, it sure looks nice. And then it's nighttime now, right? And so they go outside and they're outside suddenly and they've got him kind of up against a pole, I guess, on the edge of the deck, and there's a pool, and he's like, hey, fire up the hot tub or whatever. And so the three of them are there with him.
It's called blackmail. You've heard the term?
Of course. Mike, you're getting ahead of my story. Anyway, you see, the point is that I learned about blackmail a long time ago. What I learned was never put yourself in a position where some idiot can blackmail you, where someone has power over you.
Yeah.
The dialogue's terrible. They pull a gun on him, but instead of shooting him...
He's standing right on the edge of the boat. They could have just shot him and he would have fallen right in the ocean.
Shot him, kicked him into the water. Yeah. No, Albert grabs him, drowns him, and we get a very long, elaborate drowning sequence where he's holding him underwater. There's even a camera shot up at him and stuff. And then when they're done, I thought something was happening. Albert is very distressed. He's like, like out of breath. He looks weird.
Shaking.
He's shaking. They're like, what's wrong, Albert? He's like, I don't know. I feel weird. I'm out of breath. And I thought, where is the cat around? Is this another one of those the poisonous cat things? Like, what's going on? This is significant. No, it's not significant at all. Just later, Albert is fine. And when I looked in, like, the, I don't know, it was the trivia or something like that, they said that it was this actor's idea that after he finished drowning this guy, he should be out of breath.
Right. And then it's never referenced again. The movie just feels like it's slapped together.
Yeah.
Like there are major continuity things. Like there's one point where the two girls meet up with three guys at the marina.
For the first time, right?
Yeah, they don't know these guys at all. It's Corey, who's played by Rob Estes, who is still doing lots and lots of TV. All of these people worked a lot in the 80s, mostly in TV, some movies, but some of them are still working. I mean, these people have they're not lead actors in most of the things they do. You know, they pop up, you know, in one or two episodes of something.
Yeah.
Rob Estes, who plays Corey, has actually had a pretty impressive career and is still working. He's doing Hallmark movies and still doing TV. And then there's Lance, who I recognized. I think he was in Christine? I know he was in something that we have done before. He was also in a movie called The Heavenly Kid, which I remember watching when I was a kid. I know he was in something. I think he played a bully or something in some movie that we've done.
Well, Prison Break and Criminal Minds and stuff more recently. Yeah. So like you said,
Lots
he's
of
still
stuff.
working. Yeah.
There's the two of them, and then there's they're like the cool ones, and then there's supposedly kind of nerdy friend just because he's smart is named Martin. The three of them, the girls run into them at the marina and invite them to come on the yacht with them, which I thought that's dumb. Some old rich guy asks you to come on a yacht. He's not going to want three young guys coming along, which he doesn't.
Well, not to mention all of this happens over the course of 5 minutes. They have this, you know, typical 80s, like, these guys are talking and joking, and then they look over, and they're these two hot girls that are slowly walking their way, and they meet eyes, and the girl's like, can I sit down here? And, like, within 5 minutes, this girl has her hand on Lance's pants and is making some sexual comments, and they're inviting them on this yacht.
Oh, yeah, on his pants, like she's running her hand up his inner thigh. Within seconds.
I don't even know if they know each other's names at this point. Did they barely introduced each other?
What I was getting at was the continuity. They all end up on the boat. We'll get there in a second. But there's one scene where Walter is like ogling the girls from a deck. Like the girls are down like in the hot tub, and Walter's up like staring at them. Mm-hmm. And then it cuts away to a scene in a different part of the boat that Walter is also in. And then it cuts back, and he's still there staring at them.
Yeah,
like,
it's true.
In theory, he, you know, like, he could have walked away to have this other scene and then walked back, but it's just cut together so in such a sloppy way. It's really dumb. They also find the cat randomly, and Suzanne's like, I love this cat, I'm gonna keep it.
The last time we saw this cat it was rolling over the edge of a random bridge in the back of this pickup. This time it is in a box on the dock of this marina, in a box that it presumably couldn't get out of, much less into. It's just so random, right?
Because that's how they find it. They hear it. Meow, meow. so they open the box, and there's just this cute cat like, hello.
How I want it.
Walter and Mike meet the girls and the guys on shore. For whatever reason, the guys and the girl and the cat all like ferry out to the yacht. As soon as they get there, Walter's like, we don't need these other guys around, and I hate cats. They need to go back. But then all of a sudden they get word that, like, I don't know, the Coast Guard or somebody is going to be inspecting their boat. And so, like, we have to leave right now. And one of the girls is like, well, since your boat doesn't have a crew, we'll be your crew.
Oh, my God.
And Walter's like, okay. And so they're
Yes.
going to be, these random strangers are going to be the boat crew.
By the way, the captain of the ship is a woman.
Who is far too young to be a boat captain.
Far too young and far too underdressed, and Walter is hitting on her the entire time and saying all these kinds of things about, like, he says this random stuff about how this was her father's boat, but now Walter has it, and he's sort of dangling the boat, almost basically like a dick, kind of dangling the fact that he has the boat, and I don't know, implying that she can't leave and all that stuff. And she's bitching about how she doesn't have a crew to run the boat. So these three guys are now their new ad hoc crew. And Mike jumps in and he's pissed off, but then he's like, all right, well, I'm going to start assigning duties.
I don't like you. I don't like punk kids that think the world owes them a living. You're the cook. You're the busboy and the dishwasher. You're the maid.
These were the people that they couldn't leave the marina without? Was a
Right.
What is there like a full-scale restaurant running on this boat that they've got to manage, that they just have to get staffed before they can pull out of the marina, with these 6 people on board? It makes no sense, but they're like, okay, all right. And this is when I finally learned that the girls had already been to the party on the boat.
Yes! The party on the boat had happened and they had been there. We just hadn't seen it.
We didn't see it.
The other thing, I can't believe we failed to mention this. When they find the cat, all of a sudden, it is wearing a collar, like an ID collar from the lab, that it has never been wearing before.
Yeah.
And so they're like, this is weird. It looks like it's like a lab cat. And then they take it off and throw it away. Like the cat specifically put on this ID collar right
to warn
before. Yeah. And then they just take it off so that they can mention it later. It was never, ever wearing a collar before that scene. And it just wears it for like the 10 seconds until they take it off. You mentioned the captain. Her name is Rachel. She's played by Toni Hudson. I recognized her too, and I looked her up. The only credit that I really recognized is she was in a movie called Just One of the Guys, which I watched a lot when I was a kid.
That was on cable a lot for some reason.
A lot.
Yeah.
And I remember her in that, and I don't remember her being terrible in that movie, but
man,
she is one of the most deadpan actors I have ever seen in my life.
She's
in
so
this
bad.
Movie.
It's like Witchboard level of acting.
Yeah, when things start getting bad, like she cannot bring herself to force any emotion at all. She just speaks her line in the most deadpan, like she has no emotion in her face, nothing. She's a beautiful woman, don't get me wrong, but she was not into this role.
That's true.
Okay, so they're all there, and Walter doesn't like cats, and then the young people turn on music and dance. The dancing in this movie is worth the price of admission.
It really is. It really is.
You could watch the movie just to watch these guys dance.
They're just bopping around like.
Oh my God! Especially Corey. Oh, all of them, but especially Corey. I can't do it justice in words. You just have to see it. But like, it is the most ridiculous. You can't imagine that they were taking this seriously, and yet it seems as though they were.
It's very earnest. It's earnestly played, which makes it so much funnier. And I was not a young adult in the 80s. I was a kid, and so I never, I don't remember what it was like to not have other forms of entertainment. By the time I was a young adult, and I mean, we had dances and stuff, things like that. But like as far as like a little party that you would put together, by the time I was in college, we didn't walk over to the stereo in the room, flip it on, and just start dancing in front of it, Right. But it's kind of funny how in a lot of these movies, that's basically what happens. Like all the Friday the 13th movies, all that stuff. Maybe that actually did happen and I was unaware. But it looks silly in this movie. And they're dancing amidst the remnants of this party this wild party that apparently went on before, which is like trays of fruit and cake and things like that, just kind of all scattered amongst this room. And in the meantime, the cat's just running around the ship.
Below deck, yeah.
Yeah, below deck, it swipes. I guess the little inner cat swipes at some electrical cables which doesn't seem to give any discernible effect, which surprised me a little bit. I thought until much later, yeah. So I was glad that had a payoff. And then Albert is just sort of nervously mucking around in the captain's, what do you call that?
The deck. I don't know.
He's just messing around in there, like he's supposed to steer the ship or something, but he's getting all confused, and the captain comes over, and he grabs a lever and starts pulling it, and she's like, wait, what are you doing? And he's just like, it's like he's not there, and he's not even drunk yet.
Well, he's just inept, and the only reason I guess he's helping out is because they have no other crew, so it's not like he knows what he's doing or anything.
Yeah.
But that's after the kids have been given assignments, the boys are like doing their work, like they're doing dishes or something
in the
for
kitchen.
5 seconds, and they're complaining about it. So to make them feel better, the girls open their tops.
The girls
start making out with them.
Oh, it's so hilarious.
Well, I sure do feel sorry for you boys, having to work so hard in this very hot kitchen. I don't know how you can stand it. It's really hot. It is so hot in here.
Hey, Lance, getting a little warm in here? Yeah.
You see, boys, getting mixed up with us wasn't such a bad idea after all. All your hard work will have its rewards, I promise.
While the camera slowly pans down their shirts as they're unbuttoning their shirt button by button. And the surprising thing is, they do a pretty amazing job of covering up boobs in this movie. It was very clear the girls did not want to show anything. And this is the kind of movie where you totally expect to see at least one pair.
Yeah. And on the Blu-ray, I guess there's an alternate cut that's only a couple of minutes longer, but there is Suzanne fully exposes her breasts in the alternate cut. But you don't see. Like they open their shirts, but they leave them just open enough so that you can see their breasts, but not their nipples.
Yeah. Well, if you don't see the nipple, you don't see the breast. You know, that's the rule.
That's the rule. But these women are not. This was clearly written by a man. These women are not portrayed in a realistic or frankly flattering way at all. Like they're just, not that there's anything necessarily wrong with this, but they're just using their sexuality. Like that's the only tool at their disposal.
Oh yeah. Because the next scene after this, because earlier they overcame some of Graham's objections. He was like, you guys need to get to work. You guys aren't working. They said, oh, don't worry. We're going to throw a party in your honor later tonight. Just go easy on us now. We'll make it up to you with our party later. Which, if you think that turning on the stereo and dancing around in front of it isn't a wild enough party, you should try playing backgammon.
Yeah.
Or sitting on a sofa eating a banana. I just love the way this was posed. Mr. Graham is sitting there eating a banana and telling stories and getting more and more drunk, and they're all just kind of posed around him, and then they kind of start dancing too.
They dance more.
It's just so fun. It's so hilarious.
And then Rachel, who's kind of flirting with Martin, the nerdy one. They're kind of flirting, but she eventually leaves to go to relieve Albert, who is now drunk. And Albert stumbles away looking for more of his wine, and he finds it, but like the cat is sitting on it innocently.
Inside a box.
Inside a box again.
Once again, yeah.
And so Albert gets his wine, opens it up, takes a drink of it, and spits it on the cat. Like, why? What is wrong with you? And so then the evil cat comes out and kills him, and there's like a weird bladder effect under his neck, and like blood is, spraying out. And then he falls overboard screaming. The henchman guy, Mike, the next day realizes that Albert went over, but they don't want to tell anybody because they don't want to turn around to go back and get him. Rachel and Martin eventually realize that Albert fell overboard too. The boat, by the way, is having problems now. So this is to justify that scene that we saw before where the evil cat got scared and cut some wires down below. The boat is overheating. Rachel wants to turn around to go back to look for Albert, but the two bad guys convince her that he can't swim anyway, so he's definitely dead. And Walter also bribes her and says, if you keep going, when we get where we're going, I'm going to come into all this money. I'll sign the boat over to you. So she reluctantly decides to keep going.
Yeah.
And then Martin comes into like the captain's quarters where Rachel is and uses a sextant as a microscope. What?
Oh.
To examine a piece of Albert's clothes. And I did not understand what was going on here. Like, they find there's apparently a piece of Albert's clothes got torn and left behind. And he looks and he shows her and she's like, what is that? And he's like, it's blood cells. And I was like, so what? You saw blood all over the deck. Like,
he says it's more than usual, right? Something like that.
Like more than usual blood cells,
right?
And they're still active and alive, even though they're.
I don't know.
It's like
it's so weird. Again, it's supposed to be kind of this clever scene because Martin's such a smart guy, right? So he comes in. Do you have a sextant? Yeah. Do you have this? Yeah. And she happens to hand it to him. She's like, do you have some water? Yeah. And she happens to have a glass of water there to drip it on there. Puts all this together, says all this about it, and all I was thinking was, why in the first place did he think there was anything suspicious about the blood on the shirt?
Right.
This blood there's so many cells in here, it's more active. Like, how did you know that before you confirmed it with the sextant? Whatever.
No, it doesn't make any sense. It's stupid. Just for background purposes, you know the cat is present in this scene because it's screaming throughout. but Walter gets rapey with Bobby,
who's in skimpy exercise clothes, just sort of exercising to nothing.
Kind of, right. I don't know what she's doing, like a Jane Fonda style
small Jane
Fonda.
I love that he references Jane Fonda because this is totally from this era. I think you're better than Jane Fonda, right? And the cat ominously watches Walter hitting on Bobby, and then he basically pulls her down onto the sofa. First of all, she's kind of taking it because she has been more or less, I would say, leading him on, right? She's been intentionally leading him on to get what she wants, but now, of course, it's too much, and so he's got her down on the sofa, and then suddenly Lance jumps in, and he's like, "What are you doing?" And he runs over, and they have a little bit of a fight. And then Mike shows up with a gun, and he shoots him. Yeah, come on, right? Anyway, it escalates quickly. He shoots him in the arm, and then Corey jumps in. It's like a dog pile of people slowly coming into the room.
And then Mike fights Corey off, but then the evil cat shoots out from under the couch and bites out Mike's Achilles heel.
Yeah.
And then Mike just starts randomly shooting all around.
With the cat puppet popping out, taunting him.
Yeah. And then Rachel comes around the corner and sees what's going on and says, "Oh my God." Like she couldn't possibly be more bored by what's going on.
Well, and then they just look at Mike's wound. Mr. Graham and, was it Albert at this point? No, Albert's dead. Mr. Graham and one of the guys, I think it might be Corey, they're just sitting there. Mike's wound is not just bloody, it is bleeding profusely. And they're just standing there holding it, talking about it.
Yeah. And he's also like writhing in pain.
Yes.
And then like his veins start like pulsating and throbbing. Like they were really proud of these bladder effects that they were doing. I don't know why, because they really don't look very good, but it's like, okay, we know how to do one effect, so we're really gonna lean into it. And his heart is racing, and like at some point it looks like his heart is literally about to beat out of his chest.
Oh my God. They all lean over. It's one of those classic, almost hilarious things where it's one head on top of another, all peering down towards the camera, looking at his heart, I guess. I thought something was going to burst. It looked like Alien.
I did too. I thought it was going to explode.
I thought
like blood was going to explode.
5 inches above his chest. It blows up like a balloon 2 or 3 times, goes down. They're all like inches away from it, looking at it in anticipation. And then the next scene is them unceremoniously dropping his body over the back of the ship. I'm like, what?
Yeah. And
okay. Oh, well.
And
Well, that was interesting.
Rachel, who is still oddly calm, tries to call for help, but Walter shoots the radio because he just wants to get where he wants to go. He doesn't want any delay. He threatens to shoot Rachel, and she's like, well, you wouldn't shoot me. I'm the only one who knows how to drive the boat. And so he's like, well, then I'll shoot Suzanne, and I'll keep shooting other people until you do what I say. And so she grabs a fire extinguisher and shoots him, and Suzanne gets the gun and immediately just points it at Walter's dick. And then somehow, this just comes out of nowhere. Like, they're just, I guess, all of them conferring. And this whole scene.
As near as I can tell, the cat that bit Mr. Harvey is highly poisonous.
A poisonous cat. Now, how's that possible?
I found a piece of blood-stained shirt this morning. Rachel and I took a pretty good look at the blood. And it was mutating like nothing I'd ever seen or heard about before.
Maybe the cat's got rabies.
Oh, God.
I've seen rabies. I know what it does to the blood. This was a mutation. It's definitely not rabies.
Look, Bobby says she saw the cat while it was running from home. Tell Martin what you told me.
Well, it all happened really fast. I don't know. It didn't look like the cat, but it had to be. I don't know. His face was distorted or something. I don't know. I mean, it sounds crazy. I don't know. Did it look like a normal cat to you before, Suzanne?
Of course. It's just a cat.
God help me.
Martin, could this have anything to do with that laboratory tag that cat was wearing?
What are you talking about?
Shut up, Graham. You know, you have been a major disappointment to me.
Suzanne may be onto something. There's a great deal of experimentation on lab animals. Maybe somehow this cat system has got some type of experimental chemical in it.
You've really just got to put in some of this dialogue.
Oh, yeah.
It's just too good. But Martin says, the cat that bit Harvey is highly poisonous. What? And then Suzanne says, Martin, could this have anything to do with that laboratory tag the cat was wearing? No, probably not. Just two totally random coincidences. The dialogue is so funny.
And she reconfirms it. You mean they actually poisoned that poor cat, and now it's dangerous to all of us? And Martin's like, yep.
Yeah.
Martin deduces an awful lot about what's going on. I mean, he's pretty much spot on the nose, remarkably so after his little sextant experiment.
And somehow he also knows that not only is the cat poisonous, but if it comes into contact with any food, then that food is also poisonous.
Yeah.
So now they're in trouble because the boat is not running. They have limited food and water. Rachel at some point tells Martin her whole life story, which I remember nothing about, so it must not have been very important.
They lock Graham up in his room.
Yeah, they lock him up, and he's trying to schmooze Corey for reasons I don't know, like maybe he thinks Corey will help him or something.
Oh, he shows Corey a Rolex, and Corey's impressed by the Rolex. He's like, it's all right, I'll give it to you. I've got plenty. Then he walks over to a pair of double doors that looks like a closet door and opens it up, and there is a wall safe, a giant wall safe behind those two double doors. He opens it up and pulls out money, opens up one of the things and like hands it to Corey and says, oh yeah, this is nothing. There's plenty more of where that came from if you help me get back. And the way I say it, it sounds like, okay, this makes sense. You know, it's a typical movie villain type thing. He's trying to entice the kid who is the most enticable by money with money.
Yeah.
But the way this plays out, it's so cartoonish. Like, if you're going to have a wall safe, you would not put it in the most obvious, like, it looks like a closet. You would open this up and be shocked to find a wall safe behind there, and it's huge. Everything about this scene is so cartoony and silly. It's like a 12-year-old wrote this.
Oh yeah, everything is. And at this point, they've got the food all locked up because they're rationing it, but also because they don't want the cat to get it because it'll contaminate it. And somebody says, that cat's going to get awful hungry. Corey scares a topless Suzanne. She's topless for no reason. And then they make out for 10 seconds, and then that's it. And then Bobby is making out with Lance, who says 2 or 3 times, just so we're clear, that he can't feel his arm. When he was shot, he got shot in the shoulder. But he says 2 or 3 times that it doesn't hurt anymore. He can't feel it at all. And they make out for a little bit. And anytime anybody makes out in this movie, it's like they intentionally put microphones right up to their mouths so that it sounds like...
So gross.
It's disgusting. But then she pulls away from him a little bit, and he says, even though I lost feeling in my arm, it doesn't seem to have affected other parts of my body. But so I guess that entices her to pull the blanket back so that they both see that the evil cat is eating his hand.
Right.
And you had briefly mentioned it before, but it's so funny. When the evil cat, when you see it coming out of the real cat puppet, it's tiny. It's just a little tiny thing. But then sometimes when it's fully out, it's like a full-size cat.
Yeah, it's as big as a cat. It's huge. It changes size all the time.
And it's eaten off a couple of his fingers. But he didn't know because his arm was numb, apparently.
Right.
He immediately jumps up, runs to the boat deck, screaming, I'm poisoned! I'm already dead! I've got the poison in my blood! And he's trying to jump overboard, and she is trying to stop him, but he goes overboard, and she falls with him, and then Corey and Martin dive in after them, but Bobby and Lance are gone.
Yeah.
The fall, I guess, from the deck killed them. They are gone. Now they're in trouble. They're out of water. They're out of fresh water. They're almost out of food. Suzanne is losing it, which is hilarious.
Suddenly losing it, and it's so funny. And she's not bad at losing it, except it's switched off and on like a switch, so it just doesn't come across as real at all.
Oh, it's so funny. And she'll just be like,
we're gonna die. We're all gonna die.
We're all gonna die.
And then the response is, we're not gonna die, Suzanne. We're going to survive.
I know. Corey and Walter go on a cat hunt.
Corey, don't worry, I've got a plan, Mr. Graham. As Corey is walking around like a waiter with a plate of tuna and a fork.
Yes.
With his fork, carefully laying pieces of tuna randomly around the engine room or whatever. And it's been 2 days. By the way.
Yeah, it's been 2 days. Yeah, they've been stranded for 2 days.
2 days, and they're already out of food. When I remember their party scene, seeing so much ridiculous food out. I guess is the notion that the cat just ran around and poisoned all the food, or they just can't trust any of it?
Yeah, it's explained very briefly, somehow the cat got into the food or something, and so they can't eat any of the food. But Corey's traps don't work. The cat is not taking the bait, it knows that the food is poisoned or something. So he's going around looking at all of these bait traps, and the evil cat attacks him, and he starts shooting at it, but he shoots something that causes an explosion, a steam explosion.
Yeah.
That I couldn't tell if the steam killed him or if the cat killed him while he was engulfed in the steam. I don't know, but he's dead.
I wasn't sure either, but he shot a lot of stuff up in that engine room, and every one of it did something. It'd spray something in his face, it would start something sparking, and one of them was a hole in the hull, right? Which starts to get water in. And then immediately following this scene was maybe one of my favorite shots of the whole movie, which is, for no good reason at all, they decided they needed a close-up of the cat puppet crawling back into the cat's mouth. And you just see the fake cat, kind of just a close-up of his mouth on its side. It already looks like a stuffed animal. And then this little cat going in there, opening up his mouth and starting to crawl back in. It looks hilarious. And then the cat's eye lights up.
Oh, I didn't even notice that.
Yeah, I just couldn't make any of that out.
One of my favorite scenes is Suzanne, at this point, is completely Looney Tunes, and Rachel, in a scuffle or something, drops the keys, and Suzanne gets them and goes and gets into the locked food pantry, and she's talking to herself, and the cat's in there, and she's, scared for a second, and then she's like, you won't hurt me. You're just a nice kitty. And she's eating the food, and she's like, I knew it. I knew it wasn't really poison. They were just hoarding it for herself. But it is really poison, and her throat starts throbbing, and blood starts shooting out. Right. And then she dies. And then there's a storm, and it is very clearly a toy boat. And they literally filmed this in the director's swimming pool, and it looks
shows.
like it. It looks like a toy boat in a swimming pool, and the boat is sinking, and they're trying to get on the lifeboat. Walter goes back for his money. For some reason, there are only 3 suitcases, but he can only carry 2 at a time, apparently. So he brings the 2 out, throws them in the boat, and then he goes back for the other one, but the evil cat is there. And this is just an excellent example of, like, it's just a cat. Like, and it's just sitting behind the suitcase. It's not menacing, nothing, but like he has to pretend like he's scared of it. And when he goes for the money, the evil cat comes out and drowns him,
Leaps
like
on
scratches
him.
and drowns him because the boat is sinking. Martin finds him. Rachel and Martin get into the lifeboat and launch it, and this just looks so funny. Like when you see in a movie they're filming a bad movie in the movie, this is what it looks like.
Yes.
You can just imagine in your head the 2 guys on either side of the boat, like rocking 2x4s to make, and then somebody else like standing out, just off camera, like splashing water.
Yeah.
And these 2 people just kind of sitting in the boat pretending that they're scared, and it's hilarious.
Oh, this
the toy
scene
yacht
is bonkers.
It's so funny. It's so funny.
They have this moment. It changes tone quite quickly, right? They've just escaped. They're freaking out. And then suddenly he's like, but look, I've got the money. And suddenly the music changes to this happy music. And now they're rejoicing and hugging each other that they have like $1 million.
Right.
What? Just, everybody died. You might die too. You're out in the middle of nowhere, in the middle of a storm in this boat. And now it's like everything, the tone is like everything's going to be fine. I really expected it to fade to black at that point. And then, oh no, look, the cat puppet. And there are just no words to describe it. There are no words to describe how silly the scene looks. They look, and you see the cat puppet crawl over the side of the boat, and then it's like somebody throws it from off camera onto him. No! And so he's battling this puppet, and he tosses it back over the boat. And they're like, oh, woof, we saved. The music turns good. And then he looks to the left and goes, nope, it's not over yet. And the cat puppet crawls over the boat again. It flies towards him again. You just...
And they're like, we're the only thing floating. It's just going to keep coming back. So one of them thinks to throw one of the suitcases in, but she's like, wait, dump all the money in here. And she has a duffel bag. And so they dump all the money in the duffel bag and throw the suitcase over. And they're like, look, it's climbing on. And you see this ratty looking puppet sitting on this suitcase,
bobbing on this thing in a swimming pool. It is so hilarious. Oh,
it is really hilarious. Like I can't imagine that they didn't know how silly and stupid
they
this
had
was.
to know.
But they play it 100% straight.
Oh.
And then they're back on land. The authorities don't believe them, but they don't care because they have the money, and it looks like they're just going to live happily ever after. And then it cuts to an end where we see a beach, and we see the suitcase has clearly landed on the beach. And a little kid on the beach finds an entirely different cat.
A black cat. It could not look more different. It's bigger, it has short hair, and it is black.
It's an entirely different cat. It doesn't look anything like the real cat. And he picks up the cat and he's like, look, Daddy, or something. And the camera freezes on him, then does a quick close-up. And then that's the end.
Oh, this was
There's an alternate ending that's even worse, and you can watch it on YouTube. It's very similar. It's very similar, except instead of it ending on the beach, you see a dock, and this little kid is carrying a suitcase, and he runs up to his dad and says, "Daddy, Daddy, look what I found." And it sounds like an adult doing a kid's voice. And then the dad is like, "Well, let's see what's in this suitcase." And he opens it up, and the evil cat, pops out. It's hilarious.
Wow.
This movie ended up, I didn't know, I knew nothing about it. I read the synopsis. I read that it was wonderfully bad. But, I went in very skeptical, thinking, this is going to be hit or miss. It could either be really fun, or it could be, it could be an annoying waste of time. It was not at all. It was so much fun. It was so much fun. It's so bad. It's so ridiculously bad that it's absolutely hilarious. I was watching it by myself, as I usually do, and I was just laughing out loud throughout.
Oh,
it is so funny. The effects are terrible. The acting is bad, and just the best kind of way. It was exactly what I was hoping it would be, and I'm so glad that I found it. I didn't know. Apparently, the Riff Tracks guys have done this.
Oh, I'd love to see that. To hear it. That'd be great. Another podcast that you and I are both fans of, How Did This Get Made, has done this. I didn't know any of that. This is the first time that I'd ever even heard of this movie, and it was just such a fun surprise. It was exactly what I was hoping it would be. And it was so much fun to watch and fun to talk about, because it's so silly. And it would be so fun to sit and watch and goof on with friends. It would just be, it would be amazing. You know what? Yes. Like I said before, this has just topped my list, I think, of so bad it's good movies. I have not laughed out loud at a movie in a while, and this, I did multiple times through this. It was so much fun, and it made me want to go back and find all the other the director's other movies. Graydon Clark directed this, and he's done about 21, looks like 21 movies. And before this, in the 70s, he did a movie called Satan's Cheerleaders. And listen to this. The janitor at a local high school is actually the scout for a coven of Satanists on the lookout for a virgin to sacrifice. One day, he kidnaps the cheerleading squad to use for their rituals. However, unbeknownst to the devil worshippers, one of the cheerleaders is actually a witch and has plans of her own for the Satanists. Doesn't that sound great?
Yeah, it really does.
he did one. This other one is just a comedy from 1983 called Joysticks. When a top local businessman and his two bumbling nephews try to shut down the town's only video arcade employees and patrons fight back. 1983. That sounds awesome. Yeah. And do you remember Lambada, the Forbidden Dance?
Yes.
The Dirty Dancing knockoff. Guess who directed that one?
That's funny. Yeah, I mean, obviously, this movie got terrible reviews, as it should. But, when it came out, the reviews were terrible, as they should have been. It's a terrible movie. But I think that today, some people look back at it as what it is and how you should look at it. It's fun. It's stupid. It's bad, but it's funny. And if you go into it with that in mind, it's just great fun. Loyal listeners, I cannot recommend this movie enough. You need to watch this movie.
It's playing on Tubi right now, right?
As of the time of this recording, it is free on Tubi, yes.
Yes. Oh, not The Uninvited. It's called Uninvited. 1987 or 1988, depending on where you see it listed. Straight to video. Deserved to run in the theaters. My God. Well, thank you so much for listening to this podcast. If you enjoyed it, please share it with a friend. Also, if you enjoyed our podcast, please consider supporting us on Patreon. Become a patron of our podcast and get all kinds of goodies. We do multiple mini-sodes every month where we go outside the bounds of talking about a single movie and talk about other things. Horror movies, horror books, horror series, video games, personal stuff about ourselves. We have a 90-minute interview there with loyal listener Heather, who dives deep into the behind-the-scenes details of our podcast. All this kind of stuff you can access. Please consider going to our Patreon page. It's patreon.com/chainsawpodcast. And let us know what you thought of this episode and any future ideas for movies that we can do on this podcast. We need more so bad it's good movies.
Absolutely.
Until next time, I'm Todd.
And I'm Craig.
With two guys and a chainsaw.